our question answer panel.
Hello.
I was a little worried earlier when the auctioneer was auctioning off 2 boxes. I thought maybe we were part of something we weren't told.
That's the best joke ever.
Okay, Nina. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who decided to come in today and hear us and see us and chat with us and meet us maybe a little later. If there are any questions for myself or Marilyn, please feel free to ask. Great.
This is my first convention, by the way. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. That's what's going on. And congratulations to the organizers, too. It's so well organized.
Okay, people have questions, we can line up.
Hey.
Hi.
Venus, it's really good to see you again. I first met you at TFcon in 2000, and I can see that you haven't aged a single bit in all that time.
You're very kind, thank you, and nice to see you again. I know that I was trying to remember the actual year that I was there, and it was 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah, you were there with Alec Willows, and I think it was Scott. Sorry, it wasn't Scott, it was Ian.
It was Ian Corlett.
Yeah, it was Ian Corlett, yes. I was just curious, what have you been up to lately, as far as work is concerned?
Wow. I've done a lot of voice work since then, since the year 2000, and got to participate in X-Men, Evolution, Barbie, My Little Pony, Iron Man. I got to play Jean Grey in Iron Man, so it was a prequel to Iron Man, which was kind of cool. And a lot of film and TV. And I just wrapped, just last week, a movie called The Mystery Cruise. It's a 2-hour pilot for the Hallmark Channel. And it's a murder mystery based on the books of Mary Clark Higgins and Carol Clark Higgins. And there's also a murderer on board. And that's all I can say.
Nice. When's it debuting?
Probably they're going to try to get it out as early as possible because they have two or three projects on the go and they want to see what gets picked up. Either they'll start the series shooting in September or January.
Cool, thank you.
Don't hold back. We're not shy.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say, sure. Thanks for being here, both of you. Venus, I did get to see you before at the same convention, and welcome, Marilyn.
Thank you.
I'm just interested. You've both been influential, at least to me, in terms of being female voice actresses who have played very strong characters in, what are considered a boys' series. I didn't know if you had any particular opinions on that, and whether or not you thought that you were portraying good role models for girls, even though you were the bad girls a lot of times. But just also, especially Marilyn, since I haven't heard any of your experiences with GoBots before. Just what was like recording back in the day for that, and then Venus, how maybe it's changed the voice acting industry since then for women in that time. And do you see more opportunities and stuff like that?
Shall I take this one, Venus? I'll be quite frank with you, I really don't do much voice work anymore. The story is that when I was living in Canada, I tried to become a member of the Voice Club and no one would give me the time of day. Then I went down to LA to be a film and theater and stage actress, and I auditioned for Hanna-Barbera, and I suddenly was a big hit and had work going on all over the place without having to audition for it. It was absolutely wonderful. Did a lot of voices for many, many series. And then when I came back to Canada, same thing all over again. Nobody would give me the time of day. And since I had other things that I was doing, really, the voice work really came as a big surprise to me. I had such fun doing it. But for me, it was an extra. And I'm just glad, the people like Vina are out there kind of continuing to pave the way, because it never gets easier for the women. No matter how much progress we make, there always seems to be more of a distance to go whether you're a Hollywood film actress or whether you're on the stage, there always is more work for men and for the women. And as far as the strength of the character that I played on GoBots, well, you know, women like men, we run the gamut from the sweet and darling and kind of kind and to the very tough, miserable kind of bitches you see on the screen. So that's the full range of, you know, humanity, and let us be free to portray it. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, first I want to say it's a bit of a coincidence that you worked on Galaxy Destiny and I managed to get the Destiny Gundam here. So my question basically hinges on if you remember anything from the time of recording that show. My main question is, like, in general, what was it like recording for Band-Aid Entertainment at the time when they were still around? And also, if you have any opinion of Talia's end at the end of the series, which many fans have actually considered a total betrayal of her character, essentially.
First of all, I want to say that as an actor, we get to do many things like stage, film, theater, and if you're lucky enough, like Marilyn said, voice work. And working in the studio is phenomenal if you can get the job. And going back to, you know, women's roles, there aren't that many, but when you do snag one, it's really a cool, awesome experience. I enjoy the anime and stuff like that because it's different than prelay. Like prelay, you go in and you read your lines and you know you can play with them as you're going along. Whereas with ADR, you have to, yeah, it is fixed. It's already been done and it's brought to Canada, and you have to match your voice to the character as soon as they open it. So you have to sometimes tweak the script a little bit to make it fit and to make it realistic. It was a lot of fun because a lot of the guys that I get to work with, the directors and the studio folk, are just incredible, easygoing. We've been doing it for a long time, and it was fun. And it was fun to play Talia. And you know what, too? It's tough because it's not like when you're working on a TV series or a film where you can actually maybe talk to the writer, you know, and discuss a few things, and depending on where your character is going. This, you really have no choice. You just basically go in, you do the script as written, and unless you need to tweak it, but otherwise you really have no say in what happens because it's already been drawn. Yeah.
I just had something I thought might be fun to share with you about this business, about the characters already being drawn. Most often, the people who are doing the animation might be somewhere in the Orient, Korea, China, wherever. That's where a lot of it is done. And the voice talent is in North America. And I was involved in the series of Dennis the Menace many years ago. And yeah, I played Alice, the mom, and also Martha, the old lady who lives next door. But when the animation came from Korea, everyone had slanted eyes. And this was kind of a totally kind of unplanned on the part of the animators, but they were Asian people, and they depicted the characters according to their light. So of course they had to be sent back, the project, and redone again because Dennis and his mom are not Asian.
Speaking of Asian Korean guy,
There you go.
random question for Venus. If Black Arachnia had to go on a date between Silverbolt and Tarantulas, who would you choose and why?
That's a tough one. But I will have to say Silverbolt, but there was this connection, right, with Silverbolt, and I think Silverbolt understood Black Arachnia a lot better than Tarantulas. Tarantulas had his little hidden agenda and stuff going on, but I think Silverbolt would be my choice.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
It's very nice to finally meet you ladies. Question for Marilyn. Since you worked on the Venus the Menace series,
Yes.
and I assume it was in LA, right?
It was in LA, but the production company was French, called Deke Animation, and they had some kind of a deal going with Canada. So again, a slightly unorthodox situation in which you had a cast of Canadian actors living in LA, working under a Canadian contract with a French company.
Yeah, because usually for a case like that, it would be like somewhere from Los Angeles and somewhere like working in Toronto. So in that case, that means that you've worked with Phil Hartman.
That's right. the late great.
Is there any anecdote that you'd like to share about working on that series?
It was when we were a team, you know, and once you work with a group, the same group every week, recording every week, and it's always the same people, you become very familiar with each other's style and manner of work. And whereas with Hanna-Barbera, we would always have a rehearsal, you know, a read-through. When it came to the stuff we did for Dennis the Menace and Heathcliff and all the other stuff we did with Deke, the same team basically, we just winged it. We just recorded right off the top. And it was enormous freedom. Of course, we could always go back and do retakes, but in terms of the funny stories with Phil, not so much a funny story, I remember. He was just about to leave for New York at the time. And he could do anything. And he could also do imitations of celebrities, whether it was John Wayne or Sylvester Stallone, or I mean, whoever you wanted, he had that voice, you know, right there. He really was a genius voice actor, and what a loss to the community when he died, especially in such tragic circumstances.
And my question for Venus, I saw that Lifetime movie, Circle of Friends, and I was very surprised at how the twist happened. And I'm going to go a really group question here, but how would you have murdered all those people?
How? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How would you have murdered those people?
Well, I have done that before, and I do have experience. But
Maybe I shouldn't say so close.
I'm not. Look, one of my favorite channels, believe it or not, is the ID channel, and I watch it because I love to see, you know, real life murders that took place in a story format. I'm not as violent as you might think I am. I probably would maybe poison their tea or something like that. Something very, very simple, you know? It's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi.
It's my first time actually asking a question at TFcon. I didn't realize, first of all, Marilyn, I didn't realize that any of the robots were girls. So,
Only one.
I guess that explains the lipstick. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I was 8, right? Anyway, my question is for Venus. Sorry. My question is for Venus. I don't know if you even remember that much about Beast Wars and Beast Bishop, but Black Arachnia goes through an extensive character arc where she starts out really, really evil, and then she falls in love, and she's still trying to be evil, but she gets over it, and towards till the end, until Beast Machine, she's sort of defamed a little bit, right? Is there a favorite? Like, were you happier being an evil person, or were you happy that she became good and, you know, fell in love with Silverbolt and everything? Or how did you feel the character's arc, I guess?
Well, I have to say I was very pleased with my character's arc because, like any actor, you don't want to play a one-dimensional character. You want the character to have many layers to them. And when you're playing a cartoon character, sometimes it's difficult because what you see is what you get. But the fact that they did this story arc and they did give me somewhere to go with it was great. And you know what? Like anything, it's nice to be nice, but it's always much more delicious to be evil.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I just want to say first just a comment for Venus. Much like one of the first comments we had here, my first first convention was BotCon 2000, and the Q&A panel you did with the other voice actors was one of the first convention experiences I had. So many thanks for being part of the formulative convention experience for me. My question is actually for Marilyn. On your announcement as a guest, I tried to acquaint myself with what you've been up to of late, and tried to catch what I could. I saw that you're doing radio hosting. And I also noticed that you were doing some visual arts stuff. And I was curious if you're still up to that, or if anything new is going on the visual arts side.
Interesting question. Of course, my broadcast work still continues. My radio show is on every night at 96.3 FM between 11 and 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a classical music host, and I also read a lot of poetry. Very different from GoBots, I assure you. And in terms of my visual artwork, well, I've always done it from the time I was a kid, and I thought I was going to be a painter originally, and I became an actress instead. But I knew I always continued to do it, and I knew at one point in time, which was the millennium, 2000, that I would get myself a studio and start to work seriously. And so I have been working for 13 years. I've done a lot of exhibits, both painting and also photography and mixed photography with art, mixed medium. But as it happens, I have just finished closing down my studio. I'm making a kind of a paradigm shift in my life. I want to learn how to play the piano properly. I want to learn how to speak Italian. I want to do some more acting work. I want to do some more singing work. And consequently, I don't want to spend as much time in the studio. And I have decided that I'm going to give all of my inventory to St. Joseph's Hospital. And also help in a project to refurbish all their patient family lounges in order to be able to put my art in there.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear about the paradigm shift. It's very respectable to see anyone able to engage in so many different kinds of art and performance and whatnot. So.
Well, you know, most artists do more than one thing. Somehow we get trapped into being thought of as, for example, the people who listen to me on the radio show don't know I'm an artist. They don't know an actor. They don't know I'm a visual artist. The people who know me as a visual artist don't know that I'm an actor. It kind of works like that. People put you in a kind of a place where they recognize you or think they do, and it's very hard for them to make the switch. But I find that most creative people do more than one thing, and I see here that Vina agrees with me. And as far as this, you know, you're born the way you're born. You're born wanting to do sports. You're born wanting to be a journalist. You really are. There's something that happens when the chromosomes are thrown together at conception. And those are the things I always wanted to do. I wanted to act and sing and write and make pictures. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to follow this path.
Well, best of luck with piano, and Italian can be pretty fun.
I hope so.
I know a couple of bad words in Italian. Just kidding.
Okay, first of all, a question for Venus. First of all, it's nice to see you. I'm a big fan of Beast Wars. Out of curiosity, were there any funny stories between you and Scott McNeil when you played your characters?
Very nice to meet you and welcome. And yes, oh my gosh, Scott McNeil is he's one of my favorites. All the guys, I mean Gary Chalk, Ian Corlett, David Kay, but Scott really stands out because I've done quite a few shows with him, and he's just really dynamic, really fun, really down to earth, and is always open, right? So anytime we're in the studio, and especially because, you know, Scott and I got to have this, you know, romance between our characters, all the other guys were really jealous. And so he played that up quite a bit, which was really fun. And he's like, they're like, oh, Venus, and I'm like, oh, Scotty, you know. So it was really fun, and we really hammed it up, and the rest of them were kind of like upset with us. I'm sorry? Oh my gosh, yes. We try to take it off his head all the time.
Do we have any other questions? Answers? Religious?
Hello, Marilyn, can I call you Mrs. Pettibone?
Oh, of course you may.
Go down and Lee, everybody.
Of course you may.
And Little Stobo.
Yes.
I noticed on Little Stobo you also had a writing credit. How did that come about?
Well, I was writing at the time. I wrote a few film scripts and a TV script. I just thought, let me just have a go. And it was great fun, although it was interesting. When they cast the roles, they reinterpreted my characters. So, for example, you know, writers complain about this all the time. That's why they're always suing the production company, because their work has been changed where it's almost kind of unrecognizable. In the case of this, it was a story about a very poor, kind of almost a sort of, you know, financially challenged gentleman, maybe with a drinking problem, who lived alone, becoming friends with an elderly lady who was kind of trying to preserve, you know, her outward appearance of wealth and propriety, whereas really she was selling off pieces from her house, like one piece at a time. And they became friends because of the dog, the little Stobo. Well, I was shocked to find out, when I got on set, that they cast as the gentleman someone who turned up in a kind of a navy blue blazer and a tie with gray flannel slacks, and I was very dismayed, but that's life in the fast lane.
And what's it like for you, you know, Road to Avonlea and Little Stobo, and all your other work, of course, sort of being involved in Canadian culture in that manner?
You know, it's been a treat, really, because they're Canadian classics, and I know that they're just going to play forever. They were done in my lifetime. They're done half a lifetime ago. And yet for the audiences who watch them, and that includes the grandparents who watched them originally, and their children, and their children's children, and their children's children's children. So it's always nice to know that what you're doing has legs, particularly because they're Canadian legs, and the shows are shown all around the world, and the characters seem to mean so much to people, and I'm just proud that I was able to be part of it.
Excellent. And Venus being part of Beast Wars and the Transformers franchise, and just sort of, you know, popping up in Hallmark movies, and saw you in an episode of Supernatural. You sort of seem to be everywhere. What's it like for you to be, out there and in all these different things?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm from Montreal originally, and after I graduated theater school, it was either Toronto or somewhere close to home, right? And then my agent moved her offices to Vancouver, and I thought, Vancouver? I've never been out there, right? I gotta check it out. So I went out there for a month, and 20 years later, I'm still there. Because the time that I went out there, I had all the opportunities. Canal Films was just starting to happen. They were giving, young actors the opportunity, whereas Toronto had a lot of seasoned professionals, so it would have been a lot more difficult to break in had I moved to Toronto. But since then I did do about a year here. I worked on a show called Street Legal, which was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed my time. I mean, I'm a back east girl at heart, right? But I have to say that because, being female in this business is and can be tough, because the majority of the roles are written for men, and it's a voice game, right? But when you do get the opportunity to do voice work or film or television series, it really is a great honor, because you get to, work with different elements within the acting world, and every job is unique and fun. Some more fun than others. I particularly loved when I did the voice work, because it doesn't really matter what you look like. You can go in the studio in your sweatpants and your t-shirt and your hair in a ponytail and have fun, and really have fun. I mean, we got to the point where they had to bring in the janitor at the end of the day, because we were after we finishing our scripts, we were making paper airplanes and crumpling the paper into balls and whipping them at each other. You know what I mean? And what set can you do that on? It was so much fun. And working with a lot of these guys that were just so talented and helpful, because a lot of us that did do the voice work in Vancouver when it first started happening, we didn't have any experience, right? We were just, given some headsets, thrown into this booth, and okay, go at it, And like Marilyn said, at the beginning we did do line by line, and then it got to the point where we all got confident and comfortable with the material that we were given, that we were able to do scenes at a time, which was better, because it felt more like a play. It felt more like you were running the scene and being in the moment, as opposed to just doing the line by line and being separated from your character. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's been fun, and variety is key to life, and like in anything that you do. I mean, you could be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer, but you always have hobbies. You always have other interests, and I think just like in acting, if you get to do all of that, I think it makes it more complete and more fulfilling.
Great. Thank you very much.
I have to ask Venus a question. National Theatre School of Canada?
Actually, no, the Dome Theatre.
Oh my goodness.
Part of
I thought maybe
Dawson College.
graduates of the same theatre school.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to put your characters into an unlikely scenario. Crasher and Black Arachnia walk into an elevator together. They've both been at the same party, and as they walk into the elevator together, the doors close and they both realize they're wearing the same dress.
Crasher never wears a dress.
Or, I don't know, holographic, super...
I'm teasing. I'm just being a wise actor.
Well, I'll have to say right off the bat, Black Arachnia terrorize!
Step out of my shadow.
That dress doesn't look as nice on you as it does on me.
That's because I wouldn't wear a dress if I was dead. That's it, kids.
Thank you.
All right, this is again for I was thinking about this question. I realized Beast Wars has less than subtle names when I think about it. But for Black Arachnia, do you ever wish you had a name that wasn't just her species? And if you wanted to change it, what would you change it to?
I like the name Black Arachnia. I think it's strong, it's powerful, it's unique. And I have to say, myself growing up with a name like Venus was quite the challenge. And I learned early on that, you know, you got to stand up for who you are and be confident. And that was the name I was given because it was my grandmother's name, and I'm Greek, so they have that, you know, sort of thing that you pass on the names. And so getting off my name and getting onto Black Arachnia, I think it's a great name. I think it's who she is. I think people can identify with her because of that. And I think that's one of the keys to making a character in a series successful, is that you can identify with these characters and who they are right off the bat.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm back. So, I actually remembered this, Venus.
Yeah.
A long time ago, I don't remember which voice actor said it, but around the time when you guys were recording Beast Wars, Alec Willis would actually have like a pencil near his fingers, and there was like this sort of incident that happened where like he accidentally poked you in the eye through it. Could you actually tell your side of the story on that, or if you remember it?
Is that the story that Alec Willis told you?
I think.
To make himself sound really interesting? No, just kidding.
I think it was David Kay that said it.
Probably did. Okay. You know, when we're in the studio, we've got like the stand, we've got our headsets on, we've got usually a pencil because the director is usually giving us notes, and we're like highlighting or marking on our scripts like certain points in it to make it better. And he might have been standing too close to me, or maybe our podiums were too close to each other. And he might have poked me, not in the eye, but I think he might have like flung off his fingertip and hit me in the head or something like that. And then I stabbed him. Tell David Kay that story next time you see him.
Any other questions? Good.
Hi, another question for both of you this time. What would you consider to have been the most challenging role for you thus far in your careers?
Okay, sure. Challenging, like in any character that you approach, I mean, like Marilyn said earlier, as an actor, you kind of try to do a little bit of everything, but not necessarily something perfectly, right? Like you have to have knowledge of different things and draw from different emotions or experiences that you've had in your life to make the character sound realistic, or to bring to it something that's, you know, authentic and real and truthful. So I think the most challenging for me is playing characters that are murderers or that have committed murder, because I've never done that in real life. So that's really, where do you go to get to that place where you really can actually, you know, do that to another human being, right? So I think those roles for me are the most challenging.
For me, I think it was Crasher in the GoBots, because she was just pure unmitigated evil. There were no nuances to her side. I mean, if I'd wanted to play those nuances, I wouldn't be permitted to. That's why she was written into the script the way she was, to be that color, that nasty, horrible, black, evil character. And to do that, you know, sort of show after show after show, is challenging, because the thing that makes acting rewarding are the nuances, are the small little touches, are the variations, the growth of the character. And there was really no chance to do that in Crasher.
I'm sure you had no idea about this, but Hasbro actually made a toy. Well, they made a character called Fracture, who was and she was female, and she transformed into a race car. I think the only reason they didn't actually name her Crasher was because they couldn't get the trademark on the name. But yeah, she was a little GoBot homage in the Transformers line a few years ago. So.
Oh, that's nice to know. Wish I had one. Thank you.
Someone here should try and find one for her.
Does it?
Question for the both of you. is there any like a favorite or silliest blooper moment in your voice acting career?
I think I'll take this one, Venus, if you wouldn't mind, because I don't think so. The whole thing about doing animation voices is that you can be as silly and as kind of ridiculous all the time, so there's really nothing you can really ever do that's going to go wrong, and if it does and it's important to the show, it's just cut and you do it again. One of the things I think is so wonderful about animation work for actors, it's a tremendous training ground, because whereas especially on the stage and to some degree in films, you know, if you have a character, you've got your lines, and you kind of spend a lot of time sort of doing psychological insight into what the character might think and might feel and what its history was, and you know, all this kind of method stuff. Whereas with voice work, you don't have the time, and you just got to come up with it like that, and you just got to trust yourself and trust your instincts and just go for it. And that's the thing that I always loved about voice work.
For me, I agree with you, but I have to say, when you're in a studio so close together and it's a confined space, any bodily function that has to take place can be kind of blooperish, kind of awkward, like a burp, or, you know, won't go any further, but do you know what I mean? Can be awkward, especially when they get it on tape, like you open your mouth and you know you hear like, you know, or something like that. But that's about it. No, nothing too
Two questions. One's a quick one for Venus. What's your favorite version of Black Arachnia?
When she became Maximo.
No, like
meaning versus. What do you mean?
Like original form where she's just pure Black Widow Spider, or Transmetal, or Beast Machine.
I like. You know what? I like Transmetal. I think it's cool.
Okay, and this one's a question for both of you. Are you able to watch and listen to your own work, or are you able to separate yourselves and not see you acting, just see the character you're portraying?
Often you don't have the time to watch your work. Really, it's on all different times of day or night, and unless you sort of dedicate, you know, that time for it, you might just miss it altogether. And gosh, I lost my train of thought. And I know in terms of acting in general, as distinct from only voice work, I always kind of relive the characters when I'm watching a scene somehow, because you know they're fully developed characters, and if it's an emotional scene, it's kind of imprinted on your brain, and I find myself experiencing the same feelings over again.
Not for me. For me, it's like I can. You know, sometimes I'm flipping the channel and oh my God, there I am, and I'm like, oh my God, there I am. Like, you know what I mean? It's an out of body experience almost. I can watch a show or the characters like other people do, but when I'm watching my character, it's like sometimes I'll get into the moment because of the cool animation and action scenes. But if it's just, you know, my character and my voice, sometimes I'm like, okay, what did I say? How did I say that? Oh, I shouldn't have said it that way. You know what I mean? Like I start like analyzing and wanting to change things. But I can get, you know, like kind of in the moment when I'm watching other people, but when I'm myself, it's like, no, I automatically, there's that weird thing of like, oh my God, there I am, yeah.
You know, the creative process to me, it's an infinitely varied thing. And I wrote a novel called Rogues and Vagabonds. And of course, when I was writing it, I was, you know, involved second by second with the life of these characters. But later on, when I read it, it was as if somebody else had written it, and I was reading it just as if it were a book that I picked up. So that kind of surprised me.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a bit of a shared question for the two of you. Venus, it's been a while since you've been at a Transformers convention, and Marilyn, I don't believe you've been to any of these before. So I'm curious, Venus, how you're feeling about just how the convention scene in this little niche is feeling, you know, this many years later. And Marilyn, I'm curious how you're just taking the experience on your first go.
I think it's great. I think the organizers have done a wonderful job. I love the venue. I love the way everything's laid out. I love the way, you know, people participate and the costumes that they've created, and just the passion for the cartoons that we've worked on is just incredible. And enjoyed myself in the past, and you know, so far I just got in last night, but it's been awesome, and I look forward to, you know, experiencing more of this.
Well, I should say this is my first convention, and I'm just totally floored, but the organization, for example, usually when you go to an event, you're saying like, where am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be here? Who is it taking care of me? Here, I just felt I've been just so guided, and in a way that made me feel so comfortable. But mostly, it's such a pleasure to see that we don't do our work in a vacuum. In a way, we do. We're kind of doing it in isolated, in a studio, whatever, on a set somewhere. But in terms of the people who listen to us, who watch us, to see that there are people who care about what we do, that we fulfill a function. And I remember at one point in my life, I felt very guilty that I wasn't doing something which I thought was socially worthy, like I wasn't helping starving people. And I'm sorry about this microphone, I'm sitting having trouble not getting any pops on it. Speak it on the side, is that okay? Speak on the side is one of the little tricks I usually do, but okay. So I was feeling guilty that I wasn't helping the world. And I said it to my mother-in-law. I said, I don't make anything. I don't make anything useful. And she said, you make people laugh, you make people cry. And that touched me so much, and I thought, yeah, it is worthwhile being a performer. It is. We do have a place and a function and a meaning for people who watch and listen to our work.
Thank you very much.
This is a little bit of a follow-on to that, then, since you both have such variety and diversity in your careers. And I was wondering, do you actually manage your digital footprint on the internet? You said you have so many things out there that represent characters that you've done. Do you actively look at what's out there to make sure that it's what you want to have portraying you out on the internet?
No. My agent's been on my case, but I'm kind of, a perfect example is just last week when I was filming on the Mystery Cruise, and sound guy had to adjust my mic, and I was right by his station, and he's got like his computer logged on and stuff, and he's showing me my images, my Venus Terzo images online, and I said, oh yeah, and then he's like, oh look at this one. He showed me Venus Terzo fat, right? And I'm like, oh my God, who would do that? Like, why would they do that, right? I mean, I had a good laugh, and then he's like, well, people can go on. I'm like, yeah, but even all these pictures that are on the internet, I haven't had a say or put them on. But yeah, no, my agent will call me and say, oh, blah, 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 this is what's happening, and this is what's out there. Of course, like anyone, I've Googled my name just to see what comes up, and yeah, it's interesting, and it's amazing, like the stuff that people put on there. And once in a while, yeah, I do go on there and see, and sometimes like go onto forums and see what they're talking about, and that's helpful as an actor too, because it kind of puts things in perspective and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about your character or whatever, it's interesting to get feedback, because when you do voice work, you don't get that instant feedback like when you're on the stage, on a stage doing a play where people either clap or walk out. It's like this is. So I think it's kind of like the closest thing that you can get to being connected with your fans, basically.
The unfortunate thing is that everything you've ever done is not only sort of put onto Google once, but it's like 100 times for every item. So you kind of go through reams of stuff that's really more or less about the same kind of stuff. So that's a bit difficult to manage. And sometimes you find you've been credited with things that you never did. For example, there's some lady doing a vacuum cleaner advertisement, and there's a voiceover, and it states underneath that this is my voice, but I don't think I ever did that vacuum cleaner commercial voiceover. But and also sometimes you tend to think, well, everything's going to be kind of complimentary, and every once in a great while you find something that isn't complimentary, and it's a bit of a shock.
Just sort of a follow-up to the Venus being poked in the eye story. I think, if I remember, I think David was talking about it in 2004 here. Does that sound right? And Alec was doing like an evil laugh and wiggling his fingers. He maybe poked you in the eye. That's how I remember it anyway. And
all I know is when I go back home to Vancouver, I'm gonna find out where Alex Willow is, and I'm gonna give him some back. It's like Alex. No, I was kidding.
And I wondered if each of you could talk a bit about the casting process and how you got your respective robot roles.
Well, with me it was Hanna-Barbera. They were a very organized group, very, very organized company. And I got it, I think, because I'd done this general audition in which you were given a series of characters, and you had to come up with voices for each one of those characters. And it was sort of once you passed the test and were part of the club, then they just cast you. It was as simple as that. Yeah, that's the way it went. And again, in terms of doing all the various guest things, you know, with the Smurfs and Scooby-Doo and all the other stuff, you were just, you know, your agent would call you up and say you're doing, you know, something for whatever, turn up at this place and this time, and that was it. Whereas when I came back to Canada and I found you in terms of voice work, even for the silliest radio commercial, you'd arrive somewhere, it'd be like a big cattle call, there'd be 50 people sitting in the room, be there for hours for some very stupid copy that I didn't want to do anyway. So I guess it can vary, really, depending on where you are and who your agent is.
Yeah, for us, for Beast Wars, we all had audition times and showed up at the studio and worked with the director, you know, auditioning and stuff and trying different things and doing our trademark, you know, and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And again, you never know if you're gonna get it or not, and then when you do, it's just like, oh my God, this is so great. And you get in the studio and you still work at it to try to find a balance to please the network, the director, and you know the studio people that are working there as well. So yeah, basically audition and hope for the best.
It's also a people situation. As in any line of work, really, there might be someone in an organization who either likes you or doesn't like you, and like your style of work. Maybe you are there a cup of tea very much, or you're not. And if you're lucky enough to have someone who's in your corner, then things are much easier. And if you don't have such a person, it'll be more difficult. It's a people business as much as a talent business.
Okay, thank you. We are currently at the 4-minute mark, so if there are any last minute questions, now's the time for them. Oh, we got one coming. Okay. Come on down.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question for Venus.
Yes.
I heard many years ago that when you were doing the voice casting for Black Arachnia, on the among the cast, the actor who played Tarantulas was
Alec Willows.
Alec Willows was especially creepy. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I kind of got the impression that the rest of the cast was kind of scared of him for real.
That's so funny. You know, Alec Willows is a super nice man and just had lots of fun. He's just one of those people that, you know, if you see him in a room, like any of us, like you wouldn't think, oh, that's what he does for a living, you know. But it was just so fun to like, you know, he would like, you know what I mean, and just the way he did it, he was just so much fun to watch, right? Because you actually get to see his face move and the expressions that he makes in order to get, you know, the voice of his character out, right? And no, he wasn't creepy. I bet you Scott McNeil or Ian Corlett said that, or David Kay for that matter. But no, Alec was really cool. Yeah, all the guys were just a blast to work with. Lots of fun.
Great. Okay. Well, big hand for our guests. There we go. Okay. Autographs. Weekend pass holders, 3 o'clock in the Britannia room. Be there or be a parallelogram. Our next panel coming up is third-party product review.